Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. I am doing well myself. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So guys, there's pretty much two ways you can apply a fragrance. The main way, what most people do, at least what I prefer to do, is to spray it on your skin, and the alternative is to spray it on your clothes. So obviously if you spray it on your clothes and let's say you wash those clothes and the fragrance is still on there, you can't really complain. I mean, you sprayed it directly on there, but sometimes you get a little bit of a residual effect where, I like to spray it try to get it behind my ear or at least on the neck, sometimes back of the neck. Also in the inner elbow, I like to spray there. And sometimes as a result, it just gets on the clothes anyway, just through residual contact. I always find it very interesting that in those scenarios, when I wash my shirt and take it out of the dryer, I can basically still smell the fragrance on there as if I had just sprayed it. Now, it doesn't happen with every fragrance, but I've got 8 fragrances here to where that has happened a number of times. So that's today's topic. Fragrances that do not wash out of your clothes. Before we get started, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and also hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. All right, guys, let's get into it. Alright, so in no particular order, but this one in particular definitely is hard for me to get out of clothes if it makes contact. That is Givenchy Hassavai. Givenchy Hassavai. You know it well. Lots of bergamot, lots of pineapple. Shares a bit of a similarity to Creed's Aventus, but it is definitely its own thing. Lots of oak moss in this as well. Couple of florals to kind of smooth it out just a little bit. Very dry, but very bright, very citrusy, very juicy fragrance. So whenever this one makes contact with my shirt collars, it just stays there. I wash it. I can wash it twice even, and the scent will just remain in the shirt. Now, I don't mind it. It actually just has this, it kind of keeps the freshness of this fragrance in the shirt collar, and it actually smells very nice even after it's been washed. The only problem is it is still that very sharp nature of this fragrance that, stays in the shirt, and if you're wearing something that doesn't really blend with that, it could be interfering, but overall, I find that usually when a fragrance is kind of stuck in a shirt, it doesn't necessarily project. It's just kind of in the vicinity of where the fragrance made contact with the shirt. Nevertheless, if I'm smelling it, that might be something that throws me off, but whatever, it's just the nature of fragrances, if you will. If you're gonna have strong fragrances in your closet, you're gonna have fragrances that are gonna get on your shirt and they're gonna be hard to wash out, and this is something that can just happen, but hey, at least it smells good. Givenchy Hassavai, one that is hard to wash out of a shirt. All right, next up from the house of Tom Ford, this is Ombre Leather Parfum. Tom Ford's Ombre Leather Parfum. Either Ombre Leather will work. Ombre Leather, the EDP, and the Parfum, I think both of those have staying power if they get on your clothes. This one in particular, I actually have sprayed directly on clothes before. I don't do it every time. I've just done it before, so it was no surprise that I could smell the fragrance on my clothes afterwards. But it definitely has had that residual effect as well, where it's been on the collar and it just stays on the shirt long after it's been washed. You know it well, has that kind of easy to wear leatheriness to it, kind of suede like to, dial down the possible animalic nature that you can have with a lot of leather. Also has some florals to just freshen it up a bit. This one in particular I think is actually a lot smoother than the original Ombre Leather. Almost less beefy in a way, which is kind of interesting for a parfum concentration. When I smell this on a shirt after it's been washed, it pretty much smells just like the fragrance. The fragrance in and of itself doesn't necessarily have a lot of complexity to it. You pretty much get what you get when you spray it on, and that's not a bad thing. But yeah, anytime I've kind of gotten this on clothes, it definitely will stick around for a while. So this one here can be hard to wash out. Once again, Tom Ford, Ombre Leather Parfum, or the EDP. All right, next up from Mason Francis Kirk John, we've got Oud Satin Mood. Extrait de Parfum, similar to Ombre Leather, the EDP, same thing. Both of them definitely going to be hard to wash out of your clothes if they get on there. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever sprayed this directly on clothes, but the juice in here is kind of purplish. The bottle is a lot darker than I think the juice actually is. Nevertheless, I bet if you spray this on a white shirt, it's probably going to stain it, so I wouldn't suggest spraying this on clothes anyway. Very heavy rose in this fragrance, very jammy-like, very kind of syrupy, very sweet. I find that when you smell this on clothes, that's pretty much what you're getting is the jammy rose kind of sticking around. I don't think the oud in here necessarily sticks around quite as much. It's in there, but the rose in this is a lot more forward than the oud is. So that tends to be what I think sticks around on clothes. I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, but when you do spray fragrances directly on clothes, you tend to smell basically what the beginning of the fragrance smells like. You don't really get a dry down, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of spraying fragrances directly on clothes, at least not heavily on clothes, maybe once to supplement the fragrance, maybe give it a little bit more longevity. Particularly I do that with fresher fragrances that don't have as much staying power. But yeah, this one pretty much smells like how the fragrance smells when you first spray it on, for the most part on clothes in my opinion. But it doesn't matter. Staying power, it will stay on your clothes long after you wash it. Wash it twice, same thing, it's still gonna be there, it just may not project as much. Once again, from Mason Francis Kirk John, this is Oud Satin Mood. Alright, next up from the house of Dior, we have got Sauvage Elixir. Dior Sauvage Elixir. Got any experience with this fragrance, you shouldn't be surprised that it has some serious staying power. The fragrance in and of itself is already nuclear. Very, very spicy. A lot of spices in this fragrance, particularly from notes like nutmeg, cinnamon. There's licorice in here. There's of course lots of lavender, and of course there's ambroxan as well. With this one, when it's on clothes, I do think you're pretty much just gonna get the spiciness of it. That's and the ambroxan. Mostly that's what I kind of smell. This one is definitely one that I notice is very hard to wash out if it gets on your clothes, particularly in a heavy amount. Another one I would suggest maybe don't spray it on clothes. I don't think it's necessary. Matter of fact, a couple of times I've noticed that this had stayed on my shirt after I had washed it. It even has just a little bit of projection, a little bit more so than what I noticed with some of the other fragrances I feature in this list. And I think that's just because the spices is what kind of sticks around with this one, and it's very sharp spices, so it kind of has this cut through the air, if you will. But yeah, it'll definitely stick around on your fabric, so be careful with that one in that regard. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't spray this on a shirt. It is definitely difficult to wash out. So once again, from Dior, we've got Sauvage Elixir. Alright, so the next one's coming from the house of Almay. We've got Lyric Man. Almay Lyric Man. Honestly, I could have just put the house of Almay here. Just about all of them, if they get on your clothes, they're gonna stick around. But this one in particular, I've just noticed, and I don't know, I just wanted to feature this one. Another rose fragrance. This is more of a spicy and green rose fragrance. The rose in here is also very jammy-like. This one here, don't just apply it to clothes, apply it to objects. This actually got on my gaming headphones when I kind of first got the fragrance, and or actually better yet, when I first got the gaming headphones, I happened to have this on, and it got on there, stayed on the headphones for like 2 weeks. It was insane, and I could like smell it in the whole room. So naturally, you would expect it to stay on your clothes if it does get on there. Pretty much smells like the fragrance does when you first put it on. It's like a spicy, jammy rose fragrance. That's pretty much what it smells like. Nothing really changes once it gets on your clothes, which is another reason I wouldn't be a big fan of spraying this one on your clothes, because it does go through a little bit of a change as the fragrance dries down, and you don't really get that effect on clothes or fabric. But yeah, like I said, the house of Almay in general, you could probably say is hard to wash out of your clothes. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Once again, this is Almay Lyric Man. Okay, next up from the house of by Killian, we've got Angel Share. By Killian, Angel Share. This one here, you know it well, very popular fragrance. Has also produced a lot of clones. Very Christmas-like spiciness and booziness and warmth, very gourmand-like. It's very nutty and kind of heavy woody to go along with those cognac accords that are in here, and of course just a lot of spiciness to it and sweetness as well. This one kind of similar to Sauvage Elixir. It kind of has the spices that kind of hang around, in my opinion. The spices and the sweetness is what kind of will stick to your fabric if this one gets on your clothes. It's very interesting because this fragrance is not weak, but it's also the weakest fragrances out of all the fragrances I have on this list, in my opinion. And it doesn't have a lot of thickness to it, though the scent in and of itself is very full, but it's like two-dimensional full, if that makes sense. So I was kind of surprised when I actually smelled this kind of sticking around on a collar of one of my shirts after I had worn it one time and it had been washed. I was like, what is that on here? And I remembered, I'm like, oh, it's Angel Share. just really didn't expect this one to have that kind of staying power on a shirt after it gets washed, but hey, it has it, so it sticks around. Once again, this is by Killian, Angel Share. All right, guys, so from the house of Mancera, we've got Oud Lemon Mint. Mancera's Oud Lemon Mint. Now, similar to Amouage, you could say that while not all the fragrances have this capability, most of Mancera's fragrances, or at least many of them, have that staying power where if you get it on your clothes, it's gonna stick around for a while. This one certainly does that. Very fresh and citrusy, does have the mint accord in here, but it's kind of like a candied mint. It's not very realistic in my opinion. It definitely has the lemony citrusness to it. It's kind of presented in a fruity way. There's almond in here to give it a little bit of a creaminess. There's quite a bit of sweetness. There's leathery accords. It's a pretty complex fragrance, even though the fragrance in and of itself doesn't go through a lot of changes while you wear it. But it definitely has staying power. It's one of the stronger freshies on the market, if you will. And if you spray it on your clothes directly, it's definitely gonna stick around because it definitely has the residual effect where if you spray it on your skin and it touches the shirt, it's gonna stick around as well. I've definitely smelled this one plenty of times after washing the shirt after a wearing. So another one, if it gets on your clothes, can be hard to wash out. Mancera's Oud Lemon Mint. All right, and last but not least, from the house of Bond number 9. Nomad. Bond number 9, Nomad. Another rose-centered fragrance. You notice rose can have some staying power on your clothes. So this one here, like I said, rose, but also very, very fruity in nature. It's almost more fruity than it is rose. And there is oud in this, but it's definitely taking a backseat to the fruitiness and the rose. There's also quite a bit of vanilla in this to give it a lot of the sweetness that this fragrance has. All these things, I think, add to its staying power, and if it gets on your clothes, it is going to stick around because this is a pretty good performer on skin as well. Similar to the other rose fragrances I've talked about, when it's on clothes, it pretty much smells like the rose and the way that it's presented in the fragrance. In this case, very fruity, very sweet. On a side note, by the way, about Nomad, I know I've mentioned in a lot of my previous videos that I didn't know if this fragrance was ever gonna hit discounters. I have noticed here recently that it is now at discounters, and considering what this goes for at full retail, even though it's still expensive at discounters, it is a good discount, just to keep that in mind. So once again, from Bond number 9, this is Nomad, definitely another one that will stick on your clothes. Alright guys, that's the video. 8 fragrances that if they get on your clothes and you wash the clothes, the fragrance is probably still going to be there once you take it out of the dryer. I'm sure everybody out there has had fragrances that do this to their clothes. So hey, put down in the comments below, what's a fragrance that got on your clothes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that you washed and it stuck around after you washed it. Thanks for watching all the way into the end. Remember guys, be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.